If you similarly have always dreamed of creating your own feather pen to write letters in grocery lists like the Dorian lady you wish you were, I'm going to show you an easy, cheap way to do it. Hi friends, I'm Ashley. Welcome to Darling Cottage Diary. I make journaling and papercraft content as well as these things being historically and elegantly informed. I try to, at least. Feather pens have been an obsession of mine for a very long time. I think anyone who loves historical fiction or history in general has probably had a similar obsession with this. Carving goose feathers is not an easy task. It's not. I've tried for on and off for years. They look like this when you buy them from the craft store. They're relatively cheap, and I will link some in the video. If you're interested in trying this yourself, you really just need goose feathers that have been dried out. If you're trying to do this with like fresh feathers you found, they need to dry for about a year to where they're like hard and almost plastic feeling. There are some other methods that Townsend's and some other historical reconstructionists have talked about on YouTube. I just buy them from the store because I don't have geese in my yard. So once you have them, you can attempt to carve them. I have been thus quite unsuccessful. I have been able to write with a few of the ones that I've made, but not elegantly. And so I wanted to show you a way where you could get goose feathers and a craft knife and make one in 5 minutes to where you can write letters and anything else your heart desires while feeling like the most elegant, fancy person of your dreams. I was going to say lady, but I realize I do have some men who watch my channel too. So we got pirates and we have it's ladies of the land, and all are welcome here. But I will say that when you're starting with your feather, you're going to want to make that cut like I showed you a minute ago that's at quite an angle, and make sure you're cutting away from you, especially if you're using a very sharp craft knife. That's going to open up the center of the quill for you. And then you will want to hold the feather in your hand. Now, depending on which side of the bird the feather comes from is going to depend on whether you're writing with a left-handed or a right-handed feather, because the feather will be turned away from you. So if you are right-handed, you want a feather from the left side of the bird, and if you're left-handed, you want a feather from the right side of the bird. The pack that I had came with a plethora of sides, and so you just find the one that's the most comfortable to you. And then when you make your first cut, and you're going to want to whittle away a little bit more than I showed the one that I had made off camera that I was trying to make without adding the nib, the metal nib that I'm going to be putting in here later. I ended up opening it up a little bit more to where it was able to split, and you need a good like 1/2 inch split, and that will naturally split as you add the nib in there. But you're going to want to hold it as you would writing it and take the feathers off. If it doesn't bother you, you could leave them, but I wanted the center of the feather to be the I guess that's the ridge, the rib. I'm not sure the correct terminology, but the hard part in the middle. I wanted the pen part to have the feathers gone because it was just going to be more comfortable. So, but I wanted the rest of it to be there because I like the plume on the end. It is the whole point of the aesthetic. And so I left the rest of it, but you could also cut it into fancy shapes, as you could probably see in a number of other movies, pictures, lithographs of people past. So once you have the holding part of the pen comfortably in place, you're going to want to very carefully, and you have a small split going up the center, you're going to want to very carefully place the nib. I will also link the nibs that I'm using in the video as well. These are Speedball 512 and 513. I got a little pack of 2. They were like $5 to $7, I want to say, at local art supply, but I'll link what I can find in the video. So once you put that in there, you can use a very stable glue like E6000 to adhere the feather itself, the handle, to the nib if you want to. I didn't, because I might want to change the feather out if it gets really messy or anything like that. These nibs last a long time if you take care of them, so I didn't really want to glue it myself, but you definitely could. So to keep the nib in place, we are going to be, there's no politically correct way to say this, we're going to be redneck about this. I am from Texas, and I'm from the country, and I'm the daughter of a chemical plant worker. I'm allowed to call myself a redneck. So we're going to do it that way and add some plain masking tape would actually blend in really well with the coloring of a white goose feather. If not, like, this washi tape worked just fine. It did kind of start coming off a little bit by the end of the video after I wrote a letter. However, you could also dab a little bit of glue on the end of the tape just to hold it in place, but not make it a permanent adherence to the feather. So that would be another solution that would be easy. You could also use tape and then use some white acrylic paint to make it more uniform. It's up to you as aesthetic as you want to make this. I was happy with it this way. I just wanted the feather to feel pretty and to feel elegant while I was writing. And the curve of the feather is actually quite comfortable to write with if you've never done that. I really like it compared to a normal straight pen. That was something that was unexpected that I learned while doing this. So that is the pen. It's done. It's finished. Easy peasy. So what I'm going to be doing the rest of the video is writing my yearly letter that I write to myself, and this printable is from my Ephemera Club that you can find on Patreon. It's just patreon.com/darlingcottagediary, and every month I upload a themed printable digital. This month it's 2 because I wanted it to be a full letter page as well as a normal sized envelope. The envelope came out a little bit smaller than I anticipated whenever I printed it. I'll probably go back and enlarge it a little bit. But I wanted it to be something that you could write to yourself, seal up, and wait until next year. I've done this for about 4 years in a row, and it's something that's I really like. It's different than writing in your journal because you can always go back and look at what you wrote 2 weeks ago or something to gain perspective or to remember how you were feeling about something, or to, like, it's different whenever you write it for a year's later future self to read and you seal it shut and you can't look at it for a whole year. It does something different to how you speak to yourself. And it's been a really important practice that I've done. And I really encourage you to do it if you haven't. So January also, the art of correspondence was the theme that my Ephemera Club voted on. And the parcels that will be going out for the higher tier, those are going to have tea inspired stickers and other ephemera to go out because it was a really close, the art of tea was very, very close second. So I'm excited to continue designing and creating those things for the physical snail mail that will be going out. But I wanted to showcase the printables that you can print as many times as you want from Patreon. And the background for the envelope is from some vintage wallpaper, and I just love the color scheme of these real soft pastel colors. It just seems very cozy. And so I wanted to create a pretty little stationery paper to write on, and it's just a little gift to yourself. A letter is such a gift. If you've ever received a heartfelt letter from someone, you know what it is. Even just a birthday card is it's so sweet that somebody takes the time out to write some sentiments to you and receive that. So it's wonderful to do that to yourself. And I'm gonna say that even though I've done this for 4 years, and I guess it tells me a little bit about how I think in my own brain, because I'm always scared to sit down and write it, and I'm always scared to open it. It's 1 year, and I always assume I'm going to be mean to myself every year. And that probably says something about my inner chatter, my inner dialogue that's going on. But I had the hardest time sitting down to do this today. And when I opened this one that I wrote myself last year, and the prompt was a little bit different because I said, the ephemera was very quilt-like. And so the prompt was, write yourself a letter and remember what fabrics you would include in the quilt of your life. And so I wrote mine in French because I was embarrassed to share it on the video, and I wanted it to be more personal. But I wrote about the fabrics of if my life was a quilt, and I started off with Chère Ashley, je me sens très fière à toi. Dear Ashley, I'm very proud of you. Si je coudrais une couverture de ma vie, j'utiliserai un tissu de mon uniforme de Space Camp, un peu de ma robe de mariage, les deux linges douces de mes bébés. Je voudrais aussi des tissus de ma chemise de la fête de divorce et le gilet qu'Aaron m'a donné pour un cadeau de Noël et un peu de cuir des journaux que je fasse. Et bien sûr, un peu de peau de cerf que je chasse. Voilà, c'est la couverture de ma vie. Sincèrement, Ashley. So, these little things of fabric from my uniform from space camp that I went to when I was a kid, a little bit of my wedding dress, to really soft pieces of fabric from my baby's blankets, and also some some fabric from the shirt that I wore to my divorce party that my best friend and my sister threw me, a little bit of a cardigan that my boyfriend gave me for a Christmas gift, and it would have been last Christmas that he gave it to me, and a little bit of leather from a journal that I made, and of course some leather from the deer that I hunt, and that would be the quilt of my life. And so these pieces really had me looking backward, and I hope that happened for the people who chose to, for my patrons who chose to write about their own quilts of their lives. It felt right to be looking backward because it was a 25 year, which is like a quarter of a century. And this year feels very different for me, at least. I feel a looking forward, moving into a new quarter time of the century. And so I just wrote about what the word that I chose that came to me. I didn't choose it. It came to me on New Year's Eve. I had been going back and forth between a couple of different words, and one that was not even in the running for focusing on this year came to me just before midnight, and it was a bit of a transcendent moment. And it's a happy word. It's whimsy, la fantaisie. And I love that. And so mostly I wrote about my fear of opening these letters, and I don't want to have that anymore because I've never been mean to myself in any of these letters. And so if you do this exercise and if you've never done this and next year comes around and you think that you're going to let yourself down, of maybe if you thought you wrote goals, because you forget what you write, and you think you wrote goals that you wanted to meet and projects you wanted to do, and you think about all of these things that maybe you didn't get to, that you feel bad about and that you're frustrated that you haven't done or haven't got to, or you didn't do as well as you wanted to throughout the year. Maybe that's just how my brain works, but you'll surprise yourself, is what I'm saying. You will tell yourself that you're proud of yourself. You tell yourself to be gentle, or, it's okay to rest, or it's okay to not have a plan. You will be surprised how kind you are to yourself in the future. And that is something that's so comforting, that this is the first year that I wrote about that in the letter itself, of like, I hope I remember this next January, that I was trying to be nice. And I hope you do too. And I realize this is all very personal, but that's just where I am. So if you are thinking about doing this, I would love to hear at least your word. I know a couple of people shared that in the last video, or maybe it was 2 videos ago. A couple of people shared their word for the year, and that was really great. But if you have done this practice before, and if you've surprised yourself either to the positive or negative, I'm really curious. And our journals are kind of letters to it's like a long book of letters to ourselves, and it's almost to ourselves, but also to unknown people, because sometimes we can do brain dumps in our journals, or we can do our journals can be a counselor, and can be a best friend, and can be a cheerleader, and can also be like a really mean boss. Like, it depends. It's your word reflected to you, and it's the voices of the people around you, and the voices of people of your past, and I think sometimes the voices of the people of your future, and maybe the person you want to be, all combined in this written medium that we keep. And I realize a lot of my videos are about journaling, and there's some of that in there too, but I don't show the writing as much, because I write in my journal every couple of days, if not every day. And obviously it's personal, but also there's only so much of me just writing that you would want to watch. So I focus on the art here, but know that I do write every single day, and I think a lot of you do too. So that perspective is really important to look back and reflect on, and making it a letter makes it so much more distinctive in time. It's almost like you're time traveling to your future self, or your future self gets to time travel back a year, and all of these memories of writing it come flooding back, all of these reflections come flooding back, and it's a really cool experience of giving yourself a time capsule almost every year. And so I would really encourage you to do this. And if you do this, please share, I don't know, anything you're comfortable with sharing, epiphanies, or if doing this practice has made a difference in decisions you've made in your life, or anything like that. I'm really curious about that. So anyway, I will be posting this video along with some other no voiceover ones later in a big compilation like I usually do, because it's got lots of delicious writing sounds. But so if you're more of the ASMR crowd, that video will be coming in a few weeks. But anyway, I hope y'all have a wonderful, wonderful week and year, and this gave you some ideas. If you just want to make the pin, that's awesome. It's really fun. I'm totally kind of thinking about taking it to work just to have see what people say, because I think it'll be fun. Nobody writes with a feather pen anymore. I get enough exclamations about writing with fountain pens, and I think it would be really fun. So I'm thinking about doing that. I encourage you to do that if you have a desk job type of deal. And then, yeah, if you're gonna do the letter, I hope that goes well for you. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. And I post videos every Sunday. If you're new, I'll see you next week. Bye, friends.